My name is Jane Redman, and I am an associate fundraising consultant with Tree Fundraising. I'm standing in for the brilliant Beth Upton, who, as you know, is on maternity leave, if you've joined these before. So by way of a quick introduction to today, we've got half an hour, and we're going to talk about anything that you want to talk about to do with major donor fundraising. What I'm going to ask you to do is to pop any questions you've got that you want to ask me into the chat room. I haven't done one of these before, so I'm going to have to filter through the chat whilst also talking, which is a bit of multitasking on a Friday afternoon. So if you've got a question, can you put question in capital letters before you write it, and then I shall hopefully see it. What can I tell you quickly about me? So I have been in the fundraising sector for, I kind of stopped at 25 years because it made me feel a bit long in the tooth. So, but over 25 years, and I've worked across corporate trust, major donor and capital appeals. And I now, as a fundraising consultant, specialise in major donor, philanthropy and capital appeals. Before I became self-employed, I was director of fundraising and comms for a regional homelessness charity. I'm a coach, so I'm a qualified coach, which I love, and I love doing that alongside consultancy and mentoring and training. And I'm also a trustee for Kent, Surrey and Sussex Air Ambulance. So any questions around any of those areas, then do pop them in the chat. While you're introducing yourselves into the chat, I just want to say I've got something I want to talk about briefly, and that is self-care, because it's just been the big give, and I'm guessing quite a lot of you have maybe done the big give, or your organisations have done the big give, and it's a really busy time of year. I hope that you were really successful and you managed to hit your targets, and it's gone really well for you. I'm not an expert on the big give. I've always been a little bit skeptical about big give when I was an employed fundraiser. And then since I've been a consultant, I have worked with some amazing small charities who have invested a huge amount in big give and been really successful. Tends to be people who haven't got a structured individual giving or direct mail program. They might not have a structured major donor program, and it's a really good way of galvanizing their supporters and building momentum. So that's another thing you could maybe put in the chat, is tell me about your big give stories. Prove my skepticism wrong. But self-care, it's really, really important to look after self. As fundraisers, I don't know any fundraiser who's never not really, really busy. And it's just easy to go onto autopilot, isn't it? Especially this time of year. There's so much to go on. So one of my favourite coaching questions, which I'm going to encourage you to think about, is where have you pressed pause today? And if you haven't pressed pause today, where could you press pause in the rest of the day? And I'm not talking about emptying the dishwasher whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil, or having a cup of tea and scrolling through social media. I'm talking about actually just spending a few minutes stopping and pausing. So one of my favourite ways to do that is I have a very big Labrador, and she's only allowed on one sofa in the house. And if you sit on that sofa, she gets straight onto your lap for a cuddle. When she gets on my lap, she's like, literally, she's the size of a small horse, and I'm quite small. So I literally can't do anything else. I just have to stroke her. And it's one of my favourite ways of pressing pause and just spending 5 minutes, having a bit of time just stroking her, breathing alongside her, feeling her heartbeat. So I would really encourage you to press pause and think about where you can build that into your day. It can literally be a couple of minutes. Jo, hello, Jo. She says hello, and hello to everybody. Wondering if there are any user groups around DonorFlex and major donors, best way to use it, hints and tips, especially for someone with an ADHD brain. Well, there we are, Jo. You've asked me my first question on my first one of these, and I don't know the answer because I haven't used DonorFlex in any of the roles that I've been in. So I'm going to throw that one open to the group. And if you use DonorFlex, or you have any top tips about managing your major donor program through DonorFlex, pop them in the chat. That would be great. or if anyone wants to like unmute and share a top tip with Jo, that would be brilliant. Let me have another look around. Thank you for that question, Jo. Hopefully we can get some. The other thing is, if someone doesn't have, if people haven't got experience of that, it might be worth putting something in fundraising chat or the major donor Facebook chat group, because there's bound to be people that can help you out in there. Ah, Sarah, how to break down barriers with trustees. Sarah, what barriers are you finding?
Um, so Humanimal Trust is founded by Professor Noel Fitzpatrick, and there's quite a few high-profile people that he's obviously got contact with. I'm saying that the board don't have time to develop major donor relationships, and they're not fundraisers.
Hmm.
I did a presentation to the board on Monday evening about sharing and how best to develop the program, but there still seems to be some resistance. And I don't know whether it's a confidence thing or how I actually break down that I'm not going to go bowling in asking for money straight away, that I just want to build relationships. And I don't know if and obviously I've worked with you before, so I know what you do. And I know there is a whole training session for trustees, but I'm relatively new here. I'm only
Mm.
7, 8 months in. So I'm still finding my feet and they're still gaining confidence with me. But I just wondered if anybody had any specific tips that might be helpful to me.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not unusual, is it? I bet we've all faced that as major donor fundraisers, is how do we engage our trustees? It's a big part of what I do in my day job. And it wasn't until I became a trustee that actually I kind of felt it from the other side. Um, and it's interesting being a trustee because you literally, especially when it's a working board. So I think if it's a board that are generally retired, they've probably got more time and more headspace that they can give to the charity. When you're working and you're a trustee, you're fitting it in amongst your work. And we come together like every 3 months, and there's always masses to get through at our board meetings. There's always this huge amount of papers, and fundraising kind of gets a little bit knocked to the side. And I hadn't really appreciated that, I think, until I was a trustee myself. So my top tip, Sarah, is there somebody on the board who does get it, who is willing to work with you?
Yeah. I think it's still early days. I'm starting to break through with one of the trustees who's offered to do some fundraising for us and get involved with the first golf day that they've ever done next year. Um, I just think I think it's also working remotely, so not having
Hmm.
direct access to them. So if I go into a meeting, it's all online. So
Hmm.
it's quite difficult to build relationships.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I would say top tips is start with people that do kind of get it and who do want to work with you. As you say, that most trustees aren't fundraisers. They're, they don't necessarily understand it, and why should they? Because they're not fundraisers. So, and not all of them are going to be able to be involved or want to be involved. So start with the ones that are interested and who do get it, and try and build that personal relationship with them, even if it is remote. But if you can, go and see them, depending on where they are. Go to them if if they can give you 40 minutes even, and you go to wherever they are and you have a chat with them. Going to trust, I think trustees can feel quite defensive of their networks. And I think we probably all live in fear a bit of fundraisers coming and saying, who do you know and who can you ask for money? And it like kind of fills people with absolute dread. So I think it's making it very clear that that's not you're not going to just roll them out and get them to tap up all their friends and family and contacts for money. It's about helping them to explore the communities and networks that they are part of, and asking them to maybe think about who's in that network that also loves what you're doing, who would be passionate about it, who should know about what you're doing, especially if you're local. I appreciate not all of you are, but if you're a local charity, there are going to be people in your local area that should know about your work. There's always this kind of major donor community and network. So if they have connections into that, who should know about the work that you're doing? Reassure them that, at this stage, it's about exploring those communities and networks. Because sometimes trustees think that they don't know anyone. when actually they really do. And it's not always people that they can introduce you to that might support. So I'm a trustee, and I'm not friends with loads of major donors, but I have a really big network of fundraising colleagues. And charity colleagues. So if there's something that the staff are facing or having a challenge with, I can connect them with lots of other people. So that's the role that I can play. Also, when someone has helped you with an introduction or to develop a relationship, ask them to tell the other trustees about it. Because that kind of breaks down those fears. They can see something positive has happened. It gives them the confidence that they can do that as well. And it's not this sort of scary thing where you've got to go and ask your friends for money. Those would be my top tips, I think. So Erica has said, we found that sending trustees a list of say 100 potential major donors, just their first and second name, then town, and asking them if they have any connections has worked well, being very specific. Then when people have come back saying yes, we ask them if they can start a relationship. Yeah, that's a really good idea, isn't it? Because sometimes just sitting down and saying, who do you know, is terrifying, but actually going and saying, we'd really like to talk to these people, particularly if you've done a bit of research and you know that they may have a connection to them. Like you could say, I understand that you used to work at so-and-so at the same time as Mr. Smith that you're trying to build a relationship with. Do you have a close relationship with them? So, being specific is another way of doing it, and sometimes that's a good way to start, to go with them with a specific number of names. And then as you build that relationship with them, they might be more willing to sit down and explore their networks and communities. Karen says, I'm about to do this with the development board. I suggested a top 20 timeline for when we want to do something proactively with them, and then to see if they have the right connections. I think that's also a big thing, isn't it? That you've got to be able to follow up. So you've got to have the resources to be able to follow it up, because there's nothing worse than going out to like a board of 12 trustees, getting them to give you all their contacts and exploring their networks, and then you haven't got the resources to do anything with it. And then they get frustrated because they say, well, I shared all my contacts and nothing happened. So keep it small, keep it manageable, and make sure you can follow up what comes out of those conversations. How does everyone record their major donors on their database? I'm using Blackboard NXT and wondering whether it's best to add a constituent code or add myself as a relationship. Not much pipeline related, but more so other people in the organisation. Okay, Erica, I'm going to suggest that people that are using Razor's Edge, NXT, within this group answer that question, because my experience of that is not that recent, because I don't use it on a day-to-day basis. I hope that's okay. Here's a question from Nikki. Would love to know a great way of tracking non-financial progress. This is a good one. Tracking non-financial progress steps with prospective major donors, e.g. great conversations, emails, touch points to demonstrate positive change. We're using Power BI, but not loving it, to be honest. So what should you be tracking that is not? First of all, it's really important to track non-financial KPIs and progress and activities, I think. I've worked with charities that literally are just, the trustees are just measuring what income they bring in. Like, obviously income's really important. But if you do that, you're missing all of the progress and all the work that you guys do as major donor fundraisers. So if one of the things we're talking to trustees about is how long it takes to build relationships with major donors, and it isn't unusual for it to be 18 months, 2 years plus between identifying someone and securing a gift, or even actually soliciting a gift, then it's really important that you're showing trustees the progress you're making in those relationships, developing those relationships, so that it isn't just about the money at the end, because there's so much as well that major donors and prospects can bring to your charity that isn't just about the money that they're giving you. So KPIs that I've used before are things like, if you've got databases and you're using moves management, so that's that whole kind of solicitation cycle. So the number of people you've identified as prospects. And then you might have a stage where you've identified them as a prospect, then you're going to research them. Then they're going to go into cultivation, which I hate that word. Does anyone else hate the word cultivation? What an awful word. Like, we talk about being relationship fundraisers and then we talk about cultivating people. But anyway, involving, engaging. And then you've got, it all depends how many stages you've got, maybe ready to ask, asked, given, and thanked, basically. So some way of tracking that on your database is really helpful, so that you can show the movement, the percentages that of people that you're moving between each stage. I'm a bit wary of things like number of prospects, because you could, I mean, that's a bit meaningless, isn't it? You could put 30 prospects, but actually what does that tell you? So it's more, I think, about the movement. It's about the percentages of people over the course of a year, or maybe you're looking at it every quarter, but the percentages of people that are moving through those relationship stages. Other ones I've used are the percentage of people that have given after being asked, or you might monitor the percentage that have given at the level at which you asked. KPIs, what you track has to be meaningful for you. So one of my tips is not to have too many, because you'll just spend all your time every quarter doing reports and tracking all this information. If you're anything like I am, probably didn't used to put things on the database as promptly as I should have done. So every quarter I was like scraping around trying to remember what I'd done. So it's got to be meaningful for you. And what you're looking for is patterns. So if you've got people that are getting stuck in the involvement engaged stage and they're not being moved to ask, that KPI allows you to look at that and think, actually, why is this? Is it because as an organisation we don't have the projects ready for people to support? Is it that we need some training in the team, because actually we feel quite scared about making the ask, and we're really brilliant at going out and building relationships and having coffees with people, but actually we're a bit nervous about making the ask, so maybe it's a training need. Maybe it's something that the trustees can help with. So if you've got a big number that are stuck there, is that an area that the trustees could help with some ask training? Or can they help move those relationships along? And it just shows your trustees and your senior management team it's more reflective and more accurate of what you guys do as a job. Other KPIs I might use are number of repeat donors, value of the repeat donors, because we all know it's easier to keep people, well, it's not easy to keep people, is it? But it's better to keep people that are already giving and focus on asking them to make a repeat gift than it is to find new people. And if you've got a good database, you can do all of that on your database. Ones for you, I think, maybe are around engagement opportunities. So so it's not about how many emails have you sent out or how many meetings necessarily. It's about, that can be helpful if you're managing people, but it's about what's the engagement response. Because it's no good just sending loads of emails and thinking, oh well, what I sometimes hear is, oh, my major donors aren't engaging with me. I've sent them this, this, and this, and they're not engaging, and I can't get them to talk to me. And it's like, they're not sitting there just waiting for you to send this information out to them. So monitor how they're engaging and what they're responding to, rather than how many communications you're getting out there, because that will help you understand whether that's a type of communication that major donor likes and wants to. And then you can talk to them, can't you? And you can say, look, I've noticed I've sent this, but and just ask them, be curious about what they want. What communications do they want from you? What are they most likely to engage with? What do they want to hear about from you? Karen, what is DonorFlex? It's a CRM database so it's a bit like Razor's Edge, or there's all sorts, aren't there? DonorFlex, Donify. I'm just scrolling for any other questions. Joe, trustees, ideas for making sure feedback flows from them back to you. If you share a list of names at board meeting, have people found anything that's worked well in terms of getting feedback? Do you know what I do, Joe, is I might share the list of names at board meetings, but I would then meet them individually to go through it. Don't just rely on your board meetings, because the time is really short. That's where you'll get better feedback, is meeting them individually or talking to them individually. It's 26 minutes past already. I'm happy to stay on because I was late, so I'm happy to stay on till 25 to, if that's helpful for people, if you've got time to do that as well. No, I haven't got any more questions at the moment, I don't think, unless have I missed anything? Like if I have missed something, pop your hand up and or unmute and just ask away. Karen, hello.
Hello. I had a question. I've got two major donors actually, both of which are in a very similar situation. So let's treat them as one. One's donated 10K to me and said very clearly, what you do perfectly aligns with my background. It's really important to me. This is the first of multiple donations. The second person donated 50K to us, has the perfect background. I know has donated £1 million to a charity in a similar-ish field, but we haven't had that second bit of the conversation saying this is sort of multiple ones. Neither of them are engaging at all. And just any advice about how I could get them on board, because they're both extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
It should be all over what we're doing. One of them said he will, but hasn't.
Oh, frustrating, isn't it?
Mm.
And it is hard, isn't it, to get major donors to engage sometimes. Are you able to pick up the phone to them? Are you restricted?
Not with 50K. He's currently in Antarctica, just because, that's what you do if you are that sort of person. Has been for months. The other guy, the 10K guy, I haven't actually picked up the phone to him, but we've had lots of emails and things back and forth where he says he wants to meet but is never able to. I'm wondering, is a capacity, and therefore I just need to be patient and find excuses to engage with him for as long as is needed, frankly.
I think what I would do is, so one of the things that we do when we're working with clients is it's my favourite bit of the work we do insight interviews with donors. And we talk to them and we thank them for their support. And then it's just, you can call it whatever you want, a curiosity conversation, a discovery conversation. And we ask them about, what brought them to the charity in the first place. What do they love about the work that you're doing? What inspired them to support you? How did they make that decision? Do they make that decision on their own? Do they make that decision as a family? Obviously, we don't just block them with questions. It's a conversation. But that can be if someone isn't engaging, that can be a really nice way of, you're not phoning them to ask them for any money. You're phoning them to say thank you and to just find out a bit more about what they like as a donor. And within that, you can ask them what comms work for you. So I sometimes have conversations with people and they say, oh, I never come to events. They send me like emails for this, that, and something else. So I don't want to come to events. And that gives you a chance to say, actually, what would you like to hear about? What would you like to come to? And sometimes that might be a project visit. Sometimes it might be an event where there's a speaker that is directly talking to them and their interests and what they find motivating. I had one client who they were trying to engage someone a major donor from the Big Give, and they'd invited them to a gala event, they'd invited them to Christmas fair, the summer fair, and everything. Well, they're not engaging, they're not doing anything. And I said, oh, have you tried this? Have you had a phone call with them? And that's exactly what she did. And in that phone call, she said, would you like to come and have a look around and have a cup of coffee? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. And he came with his daughter. And from that meeting, he went from being a 3,000 a year donor through the Big Give to he pledged 30,000 over 2 years. So that's one way, if you can get on the phone. Again, you could look at maybe any of your trustees. Do they know them? Can they get involved in helping to move the relationship?
There's no connection. In all fairness, it's come through. We have a billionaire backer, and it's come through him. But there's no interest in the billionaire's world, so I can't even say come and have lunch with him.
Okay.
No interest. It's not his world at all. But he met us through them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the key, if you can, is just finding out what's going to motivate them.
Okay.
Because then you can tailor it, and you don't have to spend all that time sending them the general stuff that you might send if they're not interested. sometimes people are really honest in those conversations, and they say, look, I'm happy to support, and I will give again, but I'm busy and I don't want loads of contact. Just send me a letter once a year to remind me to give my gift. And you just think, wow.
Hopefully. Thank you very much.
Erica's got a question. Any advice for the perfect major donor who's donated 10k already, but now not engaging?
That's
me.
No,
that's yours. That's you, Karen. Sorry. Erica, we have a few major donors who've donated in the past, but have not given us any permission to contact, no email, mail or phone. Is there anything we can do in this situation to try and engage? Lovely, isn't it? Oh, bye-bye. Yeah, bye, Charlie. Do go if you need to go. Thank you for coming. So they haven't given any permission to engage at all. I wonder if they're getting, are they getting any regular things like newsletters? Have they consented to things like newsletters? Are they getting anything at all from the charity, or are they just not getting anything personal? That is a tough one. I don't have a magic answer to that one. Again, I think you could see if trustees know them and see if they might have a coffee. You could try, oh no, if they haven't given consent for email, phone or mail. That is really tricky, isn't it? Because you're really limited. You're reliant on them finding information out about you. My mind's gone blank. Anyone got any ideas? I don't know if I've got an answer for that one.
I just thought I'd come on to kind of add to that.
Yeah, please do.
Because it is a really tricky situation. We have got a capital appeal which will be launching kind of next year. And so I'm thinking maybe if those major donors do then support that appeal, hopefully, because we do send thank you letters at the point of, because it's not marketing comms, it's a
Yeah.
We have permission to do that because it's more of a receipt letter. So maybe within that, I could just touch on, we don't have permission to contact you in any other way, but we'd really love to. Maybe that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they'll see, even though we can't directly market them about the appeal, hopefully they'll see it in news and all of that. We're a local charity, so they should see it then, and then hopefully support it as well.
Yeah. And you could also, I wonder if they're giving, or they have been giving regularly and over a long period of time, could you send something like a gift anniversary card that again it's not, well, would it be considered marketing? You're not asking them for anything, you're just celebrating their gift and saying thank you. And sometimes people don't realise how much they've given. So if they've been giving like £60 a month for 5 years, they won't realise, necessarily what. So it's really nice to say, did you know that it's coming up for 5 years that you've supported it and you've helped raise, and this is what we've done with it.
I didn't include them in the Christmas card mailing that I've just done. We did like a very bespoke Christmas card to major donors, and I didn't include those people. But would you say that we'd be allowed to do that, or?
It's really tricky, isn't it? Because you've got to go with their wishes and their preferences, and you really don't want to alienate them or annoy them.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one. I think it's, I don't know. I probably would, but I don't know if you would be. Yeah, I think
it's whether it's allowed within.
Yeah, it's all to do. I don't want to give the wrong advice here because of GDPR. So I think it is. Yeah, someone's just, but it all depends whether they've opted in or opting out. So I think that's your start point, is going back to their opt-in and their preferences.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Erica, I'm not sure that was particular.
No, thank you. That's helpful.
Right, I'm going to have to. I've really enjoyed this. I could talk about this stuff for hours. I hope it's been helpful for you as well. I'm really sorry if we didn't get to your question. I would encourage you to go to the Facebook Major Donor chat group, because and ask your questions there if we haven't got around to answering them. It's really important to ask those questions and keep that contact up. Yeah, and apart from that, remember about that pause. It's a busy time of year. Look after yourselves. and you're doing a great job. And I hope to see you again at another one of these in the future. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.